Hello everybody, this is Dr. Jeffery coming to you from Perceptive Health. We are a clinic in Campbell River and we focus on naturopathic medicine with an emphasis on digestive health and the brain. So today we're talking about neurodiversity and the wellness journey. So first of all, many people may have not heard the term neurodiversity, so that's what we'll jump into and define first, and then we'll go on and talk a little bit about the wellness strategy, the wellness journey for the neurodiverse person. We'll talk about differences in the nervous system and the nervous system needs of those that are neurodiverse. And then we'll also chat about ways to support the brain using certain nutrients. So first of all, we'll just introduce myself and just kind of say where I come from and where the information I get comes from and my expertise. I am a naturopathic doctor and practicing in British Columbia, and I have a general practice, and we emphasize the use of natural medicines and prevention for the preventative medicine. So preventing heart disease through diet and lifestyle, that kind of thing, as well as we place a strong emphasis on supporting our digestion and supporting our brain and nervous systems. I should also say that I'm not a specialist in autism or neurodiversity or dyslexia or all the individual neurodiverse subtypes. A lot of my information comes from observations of working with others in my practice, things that work for them, often work for other people that are neurodiverse. And I've seen a lot of really positive changes and success when people when they take different approaches with their health to suit their own nervous system needs. And I also am someone who identifies as being neurodiverse. So a lot of my stuff is from the many, many years of my own experiences of struggling with figuring out what was going on in my body and why it was reacting a lot differently than other people, other friends and family and coworkers and other students. I just seemed to be different, and I was always trying to figure out why that was. So specifically in my 20s, I was diagnosed with generalized anxiety disorder, dyslexia, and sensory processing disorder. Those were the three main things that kind of came up, and I started asking my doctors for support because I was experiencing just a sense of overall overwhelm and excessive fatigue, and specifically fatigue after reading, fatigue during school and during lectures, not being able to keep up with the lectures or understanding what was going on during lectures as a student. And again, I was in my 20s, so I was primarily focused on school at that point, and trying to focus on why I wasn't learning at the same rate and why I would get so overwhelmed with information so easily, and it didn't seem anybody else who had the same experiences to me, and I thought there might be something wrong with me. So that led me to going to several psychiatrists and psychologists and getting referred, and we determined that there was these three things going on. Interestingly enough, I never went further with the sensory processing. It was recommended to kind of go further, figure out why I was experiencing sensory processing challenges. But at that time, it got me accommodations, it got me support in school, and truly that access to the accommodations allowed me to continue on my school, which I wouldn't have been able to continue without. So, but it wasn't until later on that, as my life got more complex, right? Going from a student, it was very kind of a little bit more of a routine. It was just myself, but I started having family, started to run my naturopathic practice, and these issues started to get larger as I started to get more complexity in my life. And eventually I wasn't able to hide the coping strategies that I had once had mastery over, and things started to fall apart in maintaining certain relationships and certain aspects of my job. So so I went back at a few years ago, about 3 years ago now, and started to reinvestigate. Okay, what's going on with this anxiety? Do we need to support that? And I started to get support from a counselor. Started to work on that again. Develop the protocols that I had worked so well on in the past. The dyslexia always was something I kind of figured out because emphasis of reading. I learned strategies on how to read and really just not be fazed by the reading mistakes and the spelling mistakes that I once had a lot of self-consciousness over. But the sensory processing is something that was completely new and was causing a lot of challenges later on as trying to run a business with complete sensory overwhelm. And that was quite a key, and once I was able to get a hold of that, that really opened my eyes to neurodiversity and just how important this is, and how we can integrate the healing journey. So this is the, I think it's the ellipsis. I don't know the exact name for it. I call it a figure 8. It's easiest for me to remember. It basically means unlimited, right? And it refers to that the neurodiverse population is unlimited in their expression and in the way they carry out life and interact with the world. And so this is the symbol of that is being used in the autistic rights or the neurodiverse rights movement, and it shows all the colors of the rainbow, which reflects differences in the spectrum of learning, of processing information, of interacting in the world, and even goes to how the neurodiverse views gender as well. So it overlaps in so many different areas of life that many people who are neurodiverse can and do identify with it, and it can be quite powerful, especially when you start meeting other people that are also neurodiverse. So neurodiversity understands that all brains and nervous systems are unique, and that these differences are important, and they come with so many positive qualities. And that's, again, shifting attention to the positive qualities of your nervous system is quite powerful. And understanding the positives, but also understanding how it influences you and how that society really is the problem. It's not set up for the neurodiverse brain because they're not the major people group within the population. And that there's many positive qualities. So positive qualities of anxiety, for example, would be a strong intuition, being able to feel emotions from other people. That's very important for certain careers where you need to read other people. Positive qualities of autism, for example, might be strong analytical thinking, strong visual memory and skills that, and then have unique solutions, be able to provide unique solutions to problems. It recognizes that support is needed and that some people may identify as having a disability, right, and might need some support. Just like I needed support while I was in school, specifically in order to get through it. It wouldn't have been possible without some additional support. So at that time, I was kind of classified as a student with a disability because I needed to get access to certain things that were absolutely required. So neurodiversity was all started back with the autistic rights movement, and so it was mainly by the autistic community that started and popularized this term, and then it took off from there and started to include everyone with mental health challenges like anxiety, depression, bipolar disorder, going towards autism, dyslexia, learning disabilities, just ADHD, Tourette's, and even acquired neurodiversity, which is the nervous system after it's had a traumatic event or like a post concussion or stroke or something along the lines of that. self-identification is accepted and encouraged. And so this kind of doesn't make sense to some people. They might want to wait to get a diagnosis of autism in order to, or dyslexia or anxiety, to identify. But many people with shared experiences, they're so specific, so specific, that many people just can identify and do identify, and that identification allows you to find other people that are like you and process the information in the world like you, and that's very good for self-esteem, but also good for learning strategies on how to make things work. So this is the nice picture of neurodiversity, and just showing that we accept biodiversity within our population. We accept that some people are taller than others, and some people are smaller than others, and that some people have lighter skin color, some people have darker skin color, and that there's a spectrum of qualities with every trait. So the same goes true for our brain and our nervous system. And this is depicted nicely in that way that we can relate and understand to. Definitions. So there are some definitions to be aware of when we talk about neurodiversity. We talked about neurodiversity already, so we'll talk about neurodivergent. That is a definition that the individual thinking and behaviors and activities are different from the average population. Neurotypical is referred to people who kind of display average, who are make up the average within the population, the average nervous system. So they don't have difficulties with sensory information. They don't have difficulties with organizing themselves, and they kind of thrive in the typical world. And neurotype refers to the specific type of neurodiversity, so it may be focused more on attention, it may be focused on learning or reading, it may be focused more on socializing, and that would be referred to the neurotype. It's kind of like the label or the identity or the diagnosis. In some cases, some people may have a diagnosis of autism or anxiety disorder, but you don't necessarily need a diagnosis of those conditions to identify as being neurodiverse or even having those conditions, because our experiences make up who we are, and our experiences are something that no one else can really take on for themselves. And if you're experiencing these things, then they are true. So then we're going to talk a little bit about the wellness journey, but we're going to stop there. But first of all, why the wellness journey is so important is that these nervous systems are very unique. They're very they're very different from the average person, and they require often different strategies. So there may be some different strategies for managing anxiety, for example. There may be different strategies and they may have different reference ranges for all hosts of things. We're just learning this neurodiverse relationships and how they work. So they also require more energy because there's more information coming at you. And so that's what makes the wellness journey absolutely so important. And we'll continue on with this in our next short video.